Hey everyone, and welcome to my walkthrough for the 7th Circle Savage. Now, before we get into the fight, there's a couple of things I want to go over. First of all, you want to take some spread positions. First of all, we have left and right groups where you want to have one healer in each group. Rest of the members do not matter. Then we also want to take spread positions within your own role. So that means tanks and healers together as well as the DPS together. You need two different spread positions as well. First spread position you should take should be on the intercardinals, so northeast, northwest, southeast and southwest. And the second spread positions should be as if you only have half a circle to work with. So one person in the middle of the circle and then one east, south and west, with north staying open. And you'll see why we need that in just a moment. Another thing I want to mention is these eggs that you can see floating around the boss. There are going to be a lot of mechanics where the boss is going to be spawning these eggs on the map, and those will hatch into different animals. Now there are three different possibilities here. The egg with the mouth is going to be spawning a Minotaur. The egg with the dots and the rings on there, or the spots, whatever you want to call it, is going to be spawning a yak or a buffalo, whatever you want to call that as well. And then this egg with the scales or whatever else that is going to be spawning a bird. So if you know what the eggs are going to be hatching into, it's going to make it easier to identify the mechanics and where you need to go for the safe spot, because otherwise you of course need to wait until the animal comes out and then you have a delayed reaction to the mechanic. So with that out of the way, let's then move into the fight itself. As with everything, surprise surprise, we are going to be getting a raid-wide AoE. So you can just heal up and shield up for this one. It's called Spark of Life. This is also going to be applying a bleed onto the whole party. So do make sure you have some decent mitigation for that. And then we go into a tank buster. Now all of the tank busters in this fight are completely random, which one you're going to be getting. And they will also be always a double tank buster. So Dispersed Aero 2 is going to be targeting first and second in aggro, so make sure that both of your tanks have a tank stance on. And the Condensed Aero 2 is going to be hitting the main tank, but it's still a shared tank buster, so you might as well share them as well. Alternatively, you could use an Invuln for it, but just stack them up. There's no reason not to. They are definitely spread out enough to have cooldowns for it, as you can see right there. And it also applies a arrow dot on the tank, so I think if you were to invuln one of them, the dot is going to be much stronger. After this, we have the Immortal's Obol. This is going to be changing the arena, so we're going to be going from a normal circle arena to 3 tiny arenas, and we also have a bunch of Exaflares going through the map. Now the only thing you have to pay attention to is the Exaflare that is in the front. It's either going to be on the left or on the right. You want to go opposite of that. So over here, when I turn my camera, you can see that the Exaflare is on the left, so we went to the right, and you can stay here for the whole mechanic. It's the only thing you have to pay attention to here. And then of course, put up some mitigation, because this does do some damage. Knocked into the air, and then just make sure that you stay in this spot to dodge the wind Exaflares going through the arena. We get some bridges, and then we get Forbidden Fruit. This is going to be spawning a couple of things. The only thing you have to pay attention to here is the platform where only one egg is. Now over here we can already see where we need to go. This one is in the middle of the arena, so we can't go here. We need to go to the one that is on the edge. So we're going to the left right here, and that's going to be a bird. And then we're always going to get the same safe spots as well. Here the boss did a Hemiteos Aero 2, I think it's called, or Holy 2. This is going to be targeting both of your healers with a share marker. This is why we needed our 2 light party groups. And then the boss is also going to do Bolt of Attis. This one will always hit the back of the arena, meaning that the front is going to be safe. So all you need to do here, go to the front of the arena, stand with your healer groups, and dodge where the birds are going to be cleaving. These safe spots will always be the same. I'll pause it right here. So you have a safe spot over here in front of the boss, you have a safe spot back here, but do be careful that you don't stand too far away to the back, because the AoE from the boss slamming the arena will hit part of this platform as well. And there is also a tiny safe spot here. We used this one at the beginning, but honestly it's way too tight. Just stand over here and you'll be fine as well. So that is going to resolve that mechanic. Then our tanks spread away from the group for their tank busters. Going to be another Dispersed Aero 2, so they need to be away from each other. And then again, it is also going to be putting that dot on them. Then we get Spark of Life. This is yet again the raid-wide AoE with a bleed attached to it. And And then we go into Inviolate Bonds. This is going to put debuffs onto everyone. Everyone is going to be getting either a 1 or a 2 Aero marker, and then you have 1 tank and healer and 1 DPS with a 1 or a 2 holy marker. It's very simple. The Aero marker is going to be doing a tiny AoE around you. The holy marker is going to be a stack marker. So if you have the first Aero, that means you need to spread out, and that means that the opposite group is going to have the first holy. If you have the second Aero, then of course the other group is going to have the second holy. So in this case, our tanks and healers have the first Aero, so they're going to be spreading out, and our DPS players are going to be stacking together in the middle of the platform. The reason why we go to the back is because the boss is doing Bolt of Attis again. He's going to be hitting the front of the arena, and this is why we spread out northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest, so that our melee players can keep melee uptime during this mechanic. As you can see, this is where the boss sort of slams the arena. Then we get ready to move left or right, going to the right, and then it's just going to be role reverse. So this time around, tanks and healers are going to be stacking in the middle, and DPS will be spread around the arena. And that's the end of that mechanic. Then Roots of Attis is going to be breaking the front bridge, so make sure that you're not standing on that. And then we'll want to be spreading into our left and right light parties. Now we have both of our tanks on the same side, because there is going to be a tank buster here. But you can also take that tank buster on the south platform and then move into your left and right groups. Doesn't matter how you want to do that. Then Forbidden Fruit's going to be spawning some birds onto the map again. And I believe also 1 yak, but if you use the 2 front platforms, you'll always be safe here. So after they spawn, we get Multicast. This will do a couple of things. One, it is going to be doing a knockback. As soon as you see the knockback markers, you can press your knockback invulns. Of course, you can also just get knocked back from the south platform, and I would highly recommend you just use Arm's Length and Surecast here. Second thing that's going to happen is everybody will get an individual AoE on top of themselves, which is why we are spread around on the arena. And then the third thing is going to be our birds dashing through the map as well. Birds will always dash in the same pattern, so once you see the pattern right here, you'll also know where to go. So I'll try and pause it. There we go, that's the pattern. You have 2 people with a very tiny safe spot on the corners, and then you have 2 people with a bigger safe spot. And it's going to be the same on this side as well, but it does look like you can squeeze in 2 markers on one side as well. So I guess you could just put 2 people here and 2 people here. I decided, or my side at least decided, to take the tiny safe spots as well, because we were able to squeeze ourselves in there. And that's just going to be resolving that mechanic. After this, you have some time to heal up, as the boss is going to be breaking the remainder of the 2 bridges. So you have a lot of time here to just DPS the boss and slowly heal up the party. We get another Forbidden Fruit. This is going to be spawning 3 yaks onto all of the arenas. That will do a point blank AoE. So you need to get off of the platform. So we'll be waiting until the bridges come back and then jump off as soon as we can. Another Hemitheos AoE, so both of your healers are going to get stacks again. As soon as we get the bridge, move out. Make sure you don't move too far, because you don't want to get clipped by both of the AoEs. Then we make our way to the back of the map, as he's going to be slamming the front again. So Bolt of Attis, gonna slam the front. And all we need to do is go left or right, depending on where the boss decides to go. We're going to the right. And then we're going to be getting another tank buster. So we have everybody on the bridge except our 2 tanks. This one is Condensed Aero. So both of our tanks are going to be stacking together. After this one goes out, everybody back to the middle. This time around, we have a yak over here and we have 3 Minotaurs. Now, in terms of where you want to orient yourself, I would always point my back towards where the yak is spawning, and that would be my relative south, because it makes the rest of the mechanic easier if you need to bait the middle Minotaur. So there's going to be 3 different things that you might need to do here, depending on what you get. In this case, we have our tanks and healers tethered to the yak. They need to just spread out these line AoEs, as those are going to be fairly thick lines coming onto those players. Second thing is 2 players from the other group will be tethered to the Minotaurs. Those are distance-based tethers, so I'm just gonna rewind real quick so you can see that. Right here. So those are distance tethers, as you can see. those tethers need to be broken, because if you do not break the tethers, you will take bonus damage, and I believe you will also get knocked back. So what you want to do is you just want to run to the opposite Minotaur and go stand behind it. That way you cannot get hit by the cleave of the Minotaur in front of you. And then the remaining 2 players need to go stand in front of the middle Minotaur and bait cleaves coming from him as well. These cleaves are baited by distance, so just stand close to them, but honestly, you'll be the only 2 people remaining, so it doesn't really matter if you're a little bit further away. Just make sure you bait this correctly. The way to bait this correctly is away from the yak. So the yak is here, meaning that you want to bait the Minotaur over to the top right side of my screen right now. So we spread out. You can see over here the cleaves are getting baited. This also gives plenty of space for the people on the other Minotaurs to get away from those. And then all these 2 players need to do is move towards the yak so that they are safe from all of the cleaves. And that resolves that mechanic. Then we have another Blade of Attis. This one is going to be changing our arena. Heal up, shield up. Put up some mitigation, as this is going to hurt fairly hard. So we're going to be changing our arena here. We're getting knockbacks. And we also get those wind Exa flares again. So what you want to do here, we again get our healer stacks. So you want to have one group go left, one group go right, and get knocked back slightly backwards. So you don't want to go immediately onto the Cardinal. You want to go a little bit more towards the south of the arena. So we get knocked back here. Make sure you stack up. You have a little bit of time to adjust here. And then move into the explosion so that you can dodge them coming in from the other side of the arena. After this, we have another tank buster, so make sure you give your tanks some space to take that one. It's condensed, so they are stacking together. Then we're getting another forbidden fruit. This one will spawn 4 birds onto the arena. But this time around, players will get tethered to these birds. So, one roll will get all the birds, one roll will get nothing, which means that they need to go and soak these towers. When you're tethered to a bird, it's very simple. You need to make sure that you do not hit one of the towers, and technically you should go close to the bird because the bird is a knockback. But again, you can use arm's length and surecast for it, so I'd highly recommend you use that because it makes it a lot easier to see where your birds are going to go. If you stand in front of the bird, it's kind of hard to see where you're gonna get knocked back to, and it's also harder to see for the other players to position themselves correctly. So that is why we decided to go to the opposite side of the arena, so that it is very clear where these birds are going to be dashing towards, so that other players can adjust their positioning if necessary. If you do it like this though, make sure you press surecast, because otherwise you'll get knocked off the arena. In terms of timing, just look at when these orbs are about to hit the map, and then just press your surecast before that happens, and then you'll be fine. After this, make sure you immediately heal up and put up some mitigation, as we get another Spark of Life, which is that raid wide AoE that puts a bleed onto the party, so make sure you have some mitigation for that. As we go into another raid wide right after this, this is the proximity one coming from the middle. This time around, no Exa flares left or right, just choose a platform and go there. My party always chose to go to the B platform. Following this, another forbidden fruit. For this one, we are going to find our relative south. Relative south is always the one where we have the yak spawning. So in this case, it's going to be C. It's our actual south, but that would be our relative south tile to start off the mechanic. Inviolate Purgation is going to be putting those debuffs again, so the Aero and the Holies, but this time around there's an extra catch to it. When you drop an Aero AoE, that one is going to be spawning a very big AoE afterwards. When you drop a Holy marker, that is going to be spawning a very large donut AoE afterwards. So the way how we're going to be doing this is we are going to have our Holy always go to the left platform, relative to our relative south. So in this case, the Holy is going to A. Our wind AoE markers are always going to go to the right platform. Now, here's the catch. Because they are going to be spawning those huge AoEs after you drop them, you need to alternate between platforms. So Holies will always be dropped on the same platform as they have that donut they need to stand in, but arrows need to alternate between the other 2 platforms. So in this case, we are going to be starting on the B platform because C is unsafe as there is a yak that's doing a point blank AoE, but after we drop them on B, we need to go to C, back to B, back to C, and then do a final save spot, which is going to be on A again to finish the mechanic. I'm also going to tell future Ilya to zoom in onto the party list so you can see it a bit clearer what all the debuffs look like, but they're basically going to be 2 arrows for each group and 2 holies for each group. And then you just look at the Roman numbers to see what order you're gonna go in. So tank and healers here have the 1st and 2nd arrow, which means that we get to the 3rd and the 4th holy. But the order in which you have to do this is completely random. So in this case, holy goes left, arrows go right. So our DPS are gonna go to the left, tanks and healers are going to the right, and this is where you needed that half circle spreads for. You'll see why we need to spread like this as well, as these leave behind those AoEs, and those will explode later when we are about to drop our 2nd stack. So everybody moves middle here for heals and shields, because as you can see this does hurt quite a bit, and on top of that the boss is also casting Light of Life, which is going to be a heavy hitting raid right AoE. So we spread again. So that's tanks and healers done with their spreads. So middle again for heals and shields. Stay a bit longer this time because of the Light of Life, so you need some extra mitigation for the next stack or spread. Now our tanks and healers have the 2 remaining stacks. So they stack here, DPS on B, go back middle, then DPS are going to C. So everybody got their heals and shields, so back to your safe spots. And then after this final one is done, everybody meet up again for some heals and shields. And because of course you do want to be healed up for the Light of Life, which hits fairly hard. And then go back to where you dropped the holy for one final donut and explosions. And then you are done with this mechanic. If one person ends up dying here during this mechanic, it's pretty much game over, as their dev body will still resolve all of their AoEs. And if they drop, like for example in the middle of the arena, it's just game over, as that will hit everything. Then for this one, 2 birds are going to be spawning. All you need to look towards is the platform that does not have an egg on it. So we're gonna run to the A platform. Roots of Attis is going to be breaking our bridge again. And we're all going to be stacking on the side. Now, the safe spot for this one is going to be the bird that is not pointing towards you. So as you can see, the bird on B is looking at us. The bird on C is not, meaning that we're gonna move towards C. Because we're gonna get new bridges to spawn, and we need to run over that bridge to dodge these chasing AoEs. And of course, if a bird is looking at us, it's going to be dashing across that bridge, meaning that we can't go to that one. So just look at which bird is not looking at you, and then you can just run to that. And then the AoEs stop right as they reach the platform. Famine Harvest, gonna be spawning a bunch of eggs onto the arena. For this one, we want to look at the platform that only has 2 of them, as that is the one you want to base yourself off. The other 2 are going to have a bird as well. Now, the 2 over here are going to be baited by distance. The other 4 Minotaurs get a tether. Now, in terms of the safe spots, you want to cross these tethers, and I'll show you where the safe spots are in just a second as well. The other 4 players that do not have a tether go to these 2 Minotaurs, and they bait 4 cleaves coming from them. Again, baited by distance. Now, unfortunately enough, we had a straggler over here. He was not supposed to be here. He should have been on the A platform. Now you bait these markers. The reason why we bait them towards the middle of the arena, I guess you could say, is because we need to go to the side to dodge the birds that are coming in. So birds are going to be dashing across these 2 bridges, which is why we need to go to the side. As you can see right here, the birds are coming in. Now you can also use these birds to kind of position yourself for the tethers. So for the 2 tethers, as I mentioned before, you want to cross them, but you can also do something extra. So when you're crossing them, the person that is on the furthest one needs to stand on this side of the arena. The person that is on the left side needs to stand above the bird. So we have 1 safe spot behind the bird and 1 safe spot above the bird. Same thing on the other side, because there's also a bird doing the exact same pattern over there. That is going to make it so that you have as much space as possible to dodge the cleaves that are coming from the Minotaurs that you are tethered towards. Fortunately enough, we had a straggler, as I mentioned before. But luckily enough, he did not end up killing anyone else but himself. So make sure you heal up after this, as we go right into the next mechanic straight away, Death's Harvest. This will once again spawn a bunch of eggs onto the arena. And this one is going to be clockwise or counterclockwise. Depending if it's clockwise or counterclockwise completely depends on this yak right here that is on a platform. So we get 2 birds and we get 3 yaks, but one of the yaks will do a point blank AoE, that's the one on the arena. The other 2 that are on the bridges are going to be tethering 2 players again. So in this case it's going to be counterclockwise, because we need to take this yak on the north side to A, we need to take this yak right next to us to B, because C is going to be unsafe. If the C yak was, for example, on A, then we need to go clockwise, as the north one needs to go to B, and then this one needs to go south. So that is why clockwise, counterclockwise. So in this case, it is counterclockwise. So look at which yak you are tethered towards and then run to the correct platform. Unfortunately enough, we have a lot of people on the wrong platform here. But basically, this yak, because it was counterclockwise, gets baited to this side. Make sure you also dodge the bird that is cleaving. And then the yak on the other platform is baited towards the B side. But we had two DPS players over here with our tanks and healers, which is why a lot of people end up dying here. But luckily enough, heal LB exists, so we managed to just heal through it. Then we go into War's Harvest. I believe that is the final one, where we have one yak, two Minotaurs and two birds. Now for this one, unfortunately enough, it was a bit difficult to figure out the save spots, and we didn't want to spend more time on this fight than we already had. So we end up doing a complete cheese/sack strat for this. Technically, you can also like cheese it with mitigation, so you don't necessarily have to kill that person, but I'll just explain how we did it. When we do find out how to do this properly later down the line, I'll make sure to make an updated video for this mechanic specifically. So what's going to be happening is we have a Minotaur on the two bridges, we have two birds on two platforms, and we have a yak on a platform. The yak is going to be tethering to 4 players, the Minotaurs are going to be tethering to 2 players, and the birds will also tether to 2 players this time around. The way how we do our cheese strat for this is we are looking towards this line. We're looking towards the yak, bird and Minotaur. That line is going to be our point of reference, I guess you could say. So we want to have our 4 players that are tethered to the yak go to that platform and spread out. Normally, you need to do something else with that. The person that is tethered to the Minotaur, that is standing between the yak and between the bird, is going opposite of that Minotaur to break their tether. Technically, the Minotaur between the 2 birds needs to go to the platform of where the yak is, and this is where like all of the AoEs are kind of starting to overlap each other, as then players from the yak platform need to go to the bird platform and such as well. So that's why it gets kind of hectic over here, but that's why we decide to just sack the person that is tethered to the Minotaur between the 2 birds. So what they are going to be doing is just pointing it outwards so it doesn't cleave anywhere. Then the 2 people with the birds, technically we want to have them go onto the platform of the bird that is sandwiched between the 2 Minotaurs to give as much space as possible to everybody else. Fortunately enough, we didn't end up doing this, but there is enough space to do it like this as well. So as you can see, my Dark Knight is going to go to the right over here, and because I noticed it, I go to the left, and then he does not get hit by my cleave. As you can see, he barely missed it, but ideally he should have been onto the other platform. Luckily enough, because our tank actually got tethered to the Minotaur over here, he just used his tank invuln and he survived as well. Alternatively, this person would have died that is tethered to this Minotaur, or you just hyper mitigate the hell out of this mechanic and then they can survive as well. Do make sure you use arm's length if you're a tank doing a tank invuln here, because otherwise you do get knocked back. So I'll just recap real quick how our sack strat works for this one. So we look at where the yak, Minotaur plus bird is going to be. That line is our reference. People tethered to the yak go to the yak. Person tethered to the Minotaur between the yak and the bird goes opposite of their Minotaur. Person tethered to the Minotaur between the 2 birds points it outwards and sacks themselves. And then the 2 people tethered to the birds go to the bird platform that is between the 2 Minotaurs. So don't look at where my Dark Knight is going. He should have been where my white mage is on the top right over here. And then that resolves that mechanic with only 1 person dying. Of course, it's not ideal, but that was just the easiest way for us to do it as we were progging through it. And again, I'll do an updated version of this mechanic when we do figure out how to do it properly. Spark of Life, heal up mitigate, because this is that raid wide AoE that puts a bleed onto the whole party. And after this we get healer shares again, so you do want to make sure you heal up as soon as possible. Hemitheos Holy 2, or Holy 3, so those are the healer shares. We get another bolt of Attis, which is why we have pre-positioned ourselves on the back platform. This will always be back platform safe. Healer shares go out, left or right, it's going to be to the left. And then we can stay here for the remainder of the fight. All that we have left are 2 raid wide AoEs, Spark of Life, so make sure that you heal up and mitigate for this, because this does hit fairly hard, and again, does put a bleed on the whole party as well. And then we are going to be getting a second one, so make sure that people are healed up and shielded. And then after the second one, we go into the Enrage. So just pump all the DPS that you have right here. And then that is going to be the end of the fight. So that's going to do it for my walkthrough for the 7th Circle Savage. If you have any more questions, then feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll definitely get back to you. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my Patreons for their support, and I'll see you in the next one.